The industry isn't stealing your work. They're waiting for you to abandon it, and there is a specific legal blindfold that they place over every creator's eyes. It's called automatic copyright, and they tell you that you own it the second that you create it, so that you will never bother to weaponize those copyrights. But while you're playing artists, they're playing statutory chess, and today we're removing the blindfold, and I'm going to show you the six levers of Title 17, United States Code Section 106 that the industry uses to build empires, and how you can use them to burn their leverage to the ground. We're going to get dirty in this video. So let's just jump right in. Let's talk about the paper shield versus the legal sword of it all. And before we do that, I've got to express to you what copyright is. So first, let's define the beast itself. Copyright is a natural right, which an author has in their own original literary compositions. The exclusive right of an author to print, publish, and vend their own literary works for their own benefit. Though natural in law, these particular rights are formally granted by federal statute to the author of an original work. It's not a pat on the back for being a creative. It's a government sanctioned monopoly on an expression. So now, here is the lie that the industry lets you believe. The moment you create it, you own the copyright. Technically, yes, you do. Practically, it's useless. In the eyes of the industry, automatic copyright is a paper shield. And if a major studio or label infringes on your work, you can't even step foot inside a federal courtroom to sue them without a registration certificate. So you have a right with no remedy. You are holding a common law title in a statutory world. And I'm going to repeat that 2 more times so you understand. You are holding a common law right or title in a statutory world. You are holding a common law title in a statutory world. And it's going to make total sense by the end of this video, because you got to understand the game board that we're playing on. So now, the power source here is Title 17 of the United States Code. And if you want to play the game the industry plays, you have to cite the source itself, Title 17 of the United States Code. I'm going to say that forever in this video. This is the Constitution of your career. Specifically, Section 411 states that no civil action for infringement of the copyright in any United States work shall be instituted until registration of the copyright claim has been made. See what I'm saying? So now, check it out. Without that registration, your automatic rights are invisible to the judge. But the moment you register under Title 17, you activate the superpowers of the Big Six. And I'm going to talk about that in a second. Registration isn't just paperwork. It's the process of turning your art into a statutory asset that carries. Listen to this. Statutory damages up to $150,000 per infringement, so you don't have to prove actual lost wages. Number 2 is attorney's fees, making the industry pay for your lawyers when they lose. You know what I mean? And number 3 is the presumption of validity, which is the biggest thing. The court assumes that you are the owner unless they can prove otherwise. So it's kind of like you're you're innocent until proven guilty. You know what I mean? So is what it is. Now, once you have that registration certificate, you aren't just an artist anymore. You got to understand this. You are a statutory rights holder. You now hold the keys to 6 exclusive rights under Title 17, United States Code Section 106. So let's look at what the industry hopes you never learn how to weaponize. Because if you do, well, you'll see. Now, the Big Six, the statutory sword of Title 17, U.S. Code Section 106. Once you got that registration certificate in hand, you unlock Section 106 of the U.S. Code. These aren't registrations. These are 6 exclusive rights. And exclusive means you and only you have the power to do these things or to authorize someone else to do them. Let the air breathe. All right, let's do it. Now, if the industry does any of this without your express written permission or consent, they aren't collaborating, they're stealing. Number 1, the right of reproduction, the master right. Under Section 106.1, you have the right to reproduce the work in copies or phono records. This is the Genesis right. It is not just about photocopies. It's the legal control over making any copy in any format. Period. Labels and publishers love the work for hire agreements. Why? because they want to be the legal author from birth, so they own the reproduction right forever. They want you to sign this away globally and in perpetuity. And if you own the right to reproduce, you own the supply chain of your own art. Now, when you own this, every digital file, every vinyl press, every printed page is a toll booth that you operate. Okay? I mean, we're going to get deep. Number 2, the right to prepare derivative works. This is the legacy right, because this is going to take your stuff and stretch it. You know what I'm saying? So you can break that thing down and bag it up. And this is the most dangerous right for the industry to leave in your hands, right? It's the right to create derivatives, remixes, sequels, cinematic adaptations, or even translations. This is where the real legacy wealth lives. And if you know my publishing, spiel, then you know this is how you get money in the publishing game. But even with masters, you can do this too. So for instance, they'll offer you a flat fee for a book or just a song in our case, and then they'll turn it into a multi-season Netflix series based on the story of the song, or license your hit out for huge sample clearance fees 15 years later, that always happens. That's the retroactive period of a song. And they'll tell you, oh, a remix is just a promotion. You know what I'm saying? In reality, the derivative right is why one song can turn into a $100 million catalog. And if you give this up, you're giving up the future versions of your idea. And if you don't sign away your derivative rights, well, they can't even make a t-shirt with your lyrics on it without coming back to the table to negotiate. You don't just own the tree, you own every seed that falls from the tree. You gotta understand the power of these things. Number 3, the right of distribution. This is the gatekeeper right. Now you can get to be one of them gatekeepers that you talk about so much. Section 106.3 gives you the power to control the first sale. So you decide how the work is distributed to the public by sale, rental, lease, or lending. This is your gatekeeper power. It gives you the right to choose how your work enters the market. You see what I'm saying? So they want exclusive distribution for the life of the copyright. They want to control the when and the where so they can bury your work if it competes with bigger stars, specifically the movie industry. I mean, sometimes, actually, no, that's a lie, because the music industry does do this too. And they'll strip those records off that album that wasn't used and they'll put it somewhere else. But labels and publishers often bury the first sale clauses in fine print to ensure that they control the first and most profitable drop of your work. So by slicing this right into territories or time frames, you can fire a distributor who isn't performing and take your business elsewhere. So if something ain't going right at one vinyl producer in the UK that's servicing the UK, you take it to another one. Or you can give rights across several countries, from the UK to Nigeria to South Africa to the Caribbean to Brazil versus Argentina versus Peru versus Japan. You can have deals everywhere to print in all of these different territories with this specific right here, the right of distribution. All right, now enough of my rambling. Number 4, the right of public performance, the passive income right. Understand, I think you kind of get this one. Section 106.4 covers literary, musical, dramatic, and choreographic works. This is the right to perform the work publicly, which includes radio, TV, and live venues, and even streaming is still a public performance. They rely on the complexity of performance rights organizations, PROs, to keep you confused. Like, they hope you never audit your black box royalties. I mean, now this is pretty easy for most, but PROs or performing rights organizations collect this money, but billions go unclaimed every year because simply creators don't really know that they have a seat at the table, especially when it comes to live performances. And this right ensures that as long as your work is in the air, broadcasted, you are getting a piece of the atmosphere. It is the ultimate make it once and get paid forever lever. You know what I mean? Number 5 is the right of public display. This is your visual right. Now, this is going to blow your mind a little bit, but this can go off the rails. Section 106.5 is for the artists, photographers, and designers, but you are one. So it's the right to show your work publicly. Think Instagram, think posters in Five Below or Target, and even t-shirts in Target. You know them artist t-shirts you see in Target? You have the right to control where your visual work is shown. You just got to understand the rights you got. For instance, big tech platforms hide non-exclusive sub-licensable royalty-free display licenses in the 50th paragraph of their terms of service. They are essentially tricking you into giving this right away for the privilege of using their app. But when you know this right, you realize that exposure isn't a currency. It's an unauthorized display of your statutory property. See what I'm saying? Now, we need social media, so I'm not bashing them too hard, but you can get around social media if you don't want them. Last one, number 6, digital audio transmission. This was kind of the most recent one. Section 106.6 was the industry's panic button. It's the right to perform sound recordings publicly by means of a digital audio transmission. This covers non-interactive digital streaming and satellite radio. Okay, now for those who really understand, if you are an independent creator who owns the song and the recording, you are the only person in the room holding 2 different Section 106 rights for the same stream. And this is how you double your leverage. And it's going to be doubled at Sound Exchange. So, you know what I mean? But you got to get to that point, right? So we just add an extra money on top. Now, here's the thing. Some lawyers call copyright a bundle of sticks. The industry wants you to hand them the whole bundle and then thank them for the opportunity. But now that you know Title 17, United States Code, Section 106, you realize you can pull one stick out and sell it, keep the other 5, and use the first as a club to defend your career. The question isn't whether you have these rights. The law says you do, as long as you're registered. And that's what I'm trying to get you to understand. The question is, are you registered and ready to enforce them? That's the real question. Because you got to know what they are to enforce them. If you don't know what they are, then you don't know what you're doing. And that's why people take advantage of you. So far we've covered what copyright is and the 6 rights of it, the big 6. But the next part is where most artists and their teams misunderstand the point of it all and why they don't want you to know this. So stay with me. And side note, if you need a strong business foundation to run your record label with funding options, grab my 60-day record label system complete with funding options to help you support your music endeavors today. All right, that's beneath this video right now. Go click it, go grab it, go get into this game. Now, let's talk about the great statutory heist, because this is why they're really terrified that you will read Section 106. And then that will cause you to dig deeper into the statutory world. So why does a multi-billion-dollar industry tremble at the thought of a creator who actually understands Title 17 of the U.S. Code? It's because the entire business model of the big 3 and every major studio in Hollywood is built on a single predatory gamble: your ignorance. It really is. I mean, it's how we get over on you. You know what I mean? So let's talk about the work for hire shell game, if you will. The industry's favorite weapon is the work for hire clause. Under Title 17 U.S.C. Section 101, if they can classify you as an employee or your work as a commissioned part of a collective whole, you never own the rights to begin with. They aren't buying your work. They are birthing it legally. So you are a stranger to your own creation, and they want to be the author on the registration, because an author can't be fired from their own legacy. And essentially they want to be the claimant as well. You are just a work made for hire, depending on the situation you're in. Disposable, replaceable, and legally invisible to the statutory world, okay? But there is a ticking time bomb, because this is a secret that they don't really want to tell you. In Title 17 United States Code Section 203, the law gives you a reset button. And maybe you've heard about this in the news recently. But even if you signed a terrible deal and gave away your bundle of sticks, a sign, that's the key word, the law allows you to terminate that grant after 35 years and take your rights back. The industry hates this, and they spend millions in lobbying and renegotiation bonuses just to get you to sign new papers that reset that 35-year clock. They want to keep your golden goose in their coop until long after you're dead. And if you know your termination rights, you aren't just a tenant, you're a landlord waiting for the lease to expire. You know what I mean? And that's what's happening here. So for most people, they assign their rights. I don't know, let's see, so what 35 years ago was, 1991. And any artist that signed a deal and had an assignment to the record label and they assigned their masters to the record label, they're now eligible to get them back. And this is why you hear the story with Salt and Pepper and all these other artists getting their masters back. But what you don't really see, and I'm gonna go on a tangent here when we get back to it, is the labels are behind the scenes renegotiating the deals to keep part of this revenue and just handle the administration, which is really the best thing for these artists, because where you're really going to get your administration done for at this time, when it's already been in the system and the money's already been working and flowing and it hasn't stopped, right? So the deals are renegotiated and the administration is usually kept at the label. Now let's talk about the unclaimed black box. And if you want to know more about the black box, you can watch these 2 videos here. But every year, hundreds of millions of dollars in digital performance and mechanical royalties sit in, well, what the industry calls the black box. And if you haven't registered your work and claimed your Section 106 rights, then that money doesn't just sit there. It eventually gets distributed based on market share. And that means the money that you earn from your streams gets handed over to the superstars and the major labels because they have the biggest piece of the pie. They are literally eating your lunch because you didn't bring your own fork. And that's nobody's fault but yours. Now, why do they push the alternative dispute resolution and internal mediators? Well, it's simply because they are terrified of a registered statutory holder. If you have that certificate of registration, a judge can award you up to that $150,000 per infringed work that we talked about earlier without you proving that you lost a dime. That's statutory damages. It makes you an expensive person to bully. The industry's entire legal strategy is to keep you unregistered so that if they steal your work, your only legal recourse is to prove actual damages, which requires an army of accountants and attorneys you can't even afford. They want you weak so they can keep the sword of Section 504 of the code out of your hands, and that's Title 17 of the code, out of your hands. You know what I mean? So the industry doesn't want partners. They want inventory. That's why they buy up catalogs. They want you to stay in the creative lane while they stay in the statutory lane. Remember I said this was a statutory world. They spent a century making the law look like a boring, dusty book of riddles so you don't notice that it's actually a deed of ownership. They hope you never learn these rights because the second you do, the power dynamic just doesn't just shift, it begins to flip in your favor. And you stop asking for a seat at their table and realize you own the building the table is sitting in the first goddamn place. You see what I'm saying? So the goal is to truly understand the power copyright registration has and what you can legally do with that power. The real question isn't should you do this, it's how much longer can you afford not to protect your ownership. Now, if you need help with devising a copyright strategy, because there are several, book a call with me or join our group strategy calls every Monday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time inside of the Music Money Makers community. It's now free to join for some parts. Click below to join right now today. We're on school, by the way. So at the end of the day, the industry doesn't hate creators. They love creators. They love them in a way a shark loves a seal as a source of energy. They are counting on you to stay creative. They want you to focus on the melody and the art and the edit while they focus on the statutory code. They want you to treat your art like a child while they treat it like a line item on a balance sheet, because it kind of is to them. But the secret is out. You got it now. You got it. Copyright isn't a boring legal hurdle meant to keep you down. It's the only thing that levels the playing field between a kid in a bedroom and a CEO in a skyscraper on the 13th floor. Title 17 U.S.C. is the great equalizer. So now when you understand the big six, when you register your work, and when you stop signing work for hire agreements like their terms of service for an app, you stop being a victim of the industry and you start becoming the owner of the industry on your terms. Music Money Makers, if you make music, you should always make money every time. Log on to musicmoneymakeover.com. Grab the 60-day record label system complete with my funding options. Book a call. Join the Music Money Makers community. Grab the free stuff below. Watch this next video right over here to save your career. And I'll see you next time. Peace.